Hello and welcome back to the Lawn Association YouTube channel. On Chelsea Week, it seems very fitting to talk about No Mow May. So now we're in Chelsea Week. Everyone's talking about flowers and wonderful gardens and the carbon footprint that comes with all that. But obviously at the beginning of May we started this wonderful project called No Mow May. And I think it's an interesting one because everyone's got an opinion on it. But when it comes to the reality, it's a little bit different to the wonderful images that people put up where their garden's full of daisies and buttercups. It can often be a complete mess of a jungle with thistles and all those other bits of flower or plant that we don't actually want to walk around on. And as you can see with this lawn here, this is sort of indicative of what I'd call a natural lawn. This is native grasses, and what you can see here, this is actually cut on a sort of fortnightly basis. You can actually see some fantastic bits of buttercup. You've got some speedwell growing in here, and obviously lots of daisies flowering at the same time. We do have, obviously we're lucky enough that we've got wild areas that have got wild flowers growing in it, and we've obviously got the other flower beds as well, which are more pollinators. Now when it comes to the No Mow May idea, the people that started it probably forgot that actually the grass is a plant as well. And one of the problems when you don't know about lawns, and I would say most people don't really understand them whatsoever, and that includes a lot of lawn people as well, is that the No Mow May idea is wonderful on paper, but when it comes to trying to put that across to people in their own little lawns, in their own little back gardens, they need to have a little bit of advice on how it can work. Now when you get native grasses like this, as I say, this hasn't grown for 2 weeks, but this is a fescue bent lawn, and it's had the weeds in here for some time. We don't weed treat anything here at all, and this can work really well. However, if you get a lawn that's made of the new dwarf ryegrasses, which everyone seems to be buying because it's quick and cheap and easy, then the No Mow May idea is not going to work, and it's more likely going to damage your lawn. And I'm sure the people that started this idea of No Mow May probably wouldn't take responsibility for many lawns failing and then probably being replaced by plastic carpet as well. So understanding what you've got is really, really important. And as I say, it can work really well and really naturally. And you can see on here, this is absolutely lovely. Even after 2 weeks mowing, it's probably about due now. We've not got too much in the way of growth. As you can see, the grass is still only about 2 to 3 inches long. Excuse the noise of the tractor there. But if you leave a dwarf ryegrass lawn for 2 or 3 weeks, especially in the early days when it's fed by the turf companies prior to it coming down to your door, 2 weeks can be 6 to 8 inches plus, and of course that's then going to damage the grass by not mowing it for a complete month as well. So when it comes to the No Mow May idea, I think it's a wonderful idea. I don't believe, if you go into a garden centre, go and look at the herbicides and pesticides in the lawn section. It's about that big nowadays. If you look at the rest of the garden, it's huge arrays of plastic bottles of insecticides, pesticides, and goodness knows what else. So it does need to be educated a little bit, because you can ruin your lawn quite easily. But as I say, in a natural environment like this, it can work beautifully well. So just reiterating about No Mow May, if you've got a big enough garden, you're very lucky to have a big enough garden. No Mow May can work if you've got the right grass species, but if you've got a tiny patch of lawn, as we'll see in a second, and the wrong type of grass species, it can be really detrimental. Now, one of the other things that we want to talk about, which we'll sort of mosey round the wildflower lawn meadow, whatever we call it, in a moment. But as I say, we've done a few little tests on here, and there's so many videos out there these days where somebody scarifies a lawn, they overseed it, they top dress it, and bingo, they've got a lovely looking lawn for 4 or 5 months. But what you learn from lawns is sometimes what you don't do as much as what you do, which I just realised that sounds quite weird, doesn't it? But what we did on this lawn, if you remember, and again, this is not a lawn that has pesticides on it at all, so we've still got, even though we're shaving this quite short at the moment for the purpose of our natural grasses being able to thicken up like this. Remember, if you've got ryegrass, doesn't matter how often you cut it, it's not going to get any thicker. The other species in there might, but your ryegrass will only ever grow up into the compost bin. Bent grass and fescues will creep, and the more you cut them, the thicker they will become, all on their own. Surprise, surprise. Now, we did a little bit of renovation on this one, if you can recollect some of the previous videos, and we played around with a few little samples. We haven't done any intervention in here at all, other than obviously what was on there, and we just did a very light scarify. We sprinkled a little bit of grass seed down, and we'll wait and see what happens. Now, we haven't had much rain apart from the odd downpour, the odd 1 or 2 downpours since then, but it's interesting to see some of the things that the results you get. Now, if you can look in here, what we did in this section in here, we put down some pure bent grass seed, and as you can see in here, this bent grass seed germinated really well. Now, there's no topsoil, no compost, no nothing at all really. And again, even over here, you can see quite a lot of bent grass seed. Now, what we've done with that is heavily feed it in that early stage to turn it into a nice leaf blade, and it's turned into a grass plant rather than a seedling really well. Some of the areas that you can see under here, which are a little bit more susceptible to the drought, and they were last summer as well because of the trees, we haven't irrigated it, we haven't done anything, but you can see there is fescue germinating in here, as you can see down here. That's not a grass seed, that's a dog. But of course, without intervention, without you watering it and using up that valuable resource, it does become a little bit more difficult. Now, if we'd have done it a little bit earlier perhaps, or even in the autumn, which we'll do, we'll see what the results will be. And sometimes you do need to choose the time of year that's going to suit this terrain. So although autumn time you obviously get a lot damper conditions under here, you'll also get these leaves falling down right on top of your newly seeded grass as well, so that becomes a problem. In the spring, if you go in a little bit too late, as we can see here, you know, we're mid-May now, you can see that the sun and the temperatures start to get up, and it needs an intervention of water. Now, one of the interesting things in here is that we are getting quite a lot of bent grass movement, as you can see. If you come down here, you'll see some of these stolons creeping across now. So this is how bent grass does grow. So we will get some coverage over these sort of areas. There is actually some small bits of grass seed in, and as soon as we get some more moisture, this will thicken up. As I say, this is going to be minimal intervention. If you can look down here at this bit again, this only gets mowed. It's not mowed with a roller or cylinder, it's just cut with a little rotary, and although it's got some clover in there, it does look a little bit like a carpet. And of course, for all you lawn fanatics, I suppose, what you'll find is if you've got cylinder mown lawns, or if you're into cylinder mowing, this sort of grass sadly is the best one for you, because the more you verticut, the more you scarify, the more you prune this, and the better way you cut it. If you come down and look at this, even now, without any effort at all, this is like a carpet, and really, really beautiful, with no effort, no water. This had some early fertilizer quite a few months ago at a very light rate, but this is actually recovered really nicely. And again, if you want to take your lawn to that level, forget the ryegrass level, which is down here. If you want to take your lawn to that level and become a proper expert, the bent fescue is the grass that you want. Even if you don't want to take it to that level, this grass is going to work for you. And as we said on many other videos, if you want to be a ryegrasser, that's fine, but you will have to be an obsessive. So let's go and have a look at another lawn that is a bit of a ryegrass lawn, and a little bit poor. We've sort of had a go at No Mow May, but it's not looking great. So here we are. Those of you familiar with the channel, you'll obviously remember this is a very small little courtyard garden with a small courtyard lawn, put down to ryegrass, incredibly poor soils. But this, you've got to remember, this is the way that a lot of people want to look after a lawn. We all know that if you scarify and overseed and top dress and water the living daylights out of a lawn, that generally it can look quite nice, but it's not sustainable and it's not something that everybody wants to do. So when you look at lawn care, a lot of the time it's about, sometimes you learn a lot more about what you don't do and what the reaction of the grass is. So a lot of people will look after a lawn like this, they'll just mow it. So for No Mow May, we've had to cut this one obviously because it was it's another dog lawn. It's also the only area to walk around on, and this particular lawn has to be cut. So it's not the greatest thing in the world, and even though it's been cut, you can still see we've got a couple of patches of daisies. We've left our one little bit of buttercup over here. We've got a lot of thistles on here, which, you know, if you're trying to walk around barefoot is not particularly great. And if you could imagine, after 2 or 3 weeks on a ryegrass lawn when it was growing very well, these thistles were up here. So it's not a particular great thing for No Mow May for a lawn like this. Nobody wants to be walking around, especially with children, for example, treading on thistle. These bits look great, and the company that sort of started off No Mow May show wonderful pictures, and don't get me wrong, that is fantastic, but it doesn't work particularly on this lawn. In comparison, just come with me very quickly back through here just to look at this lawn over my wall. Just come and have a look at this. Now there's a great No Mow May lawn, and of course that's traditional grasses, that's native bents and fescues, and you can see even after a month the grass hasn't grown very much. We don't feed it, but it's still quite dense, but we have got the benefit of the buttercups and the daisies looking wonderful, and you know, great, that can work really well. But that's the benefit of having a great big lawn as opposed to a small postage stamp with ryegrass that just jumps out the ground like nobody's business. So generally speaking, you know, the No Mow May idea works really well. No one's got a problem with it, I don't think. The banning of pesticides and certainly herbicides in gardens is a wonderful thing, and maybe one of the next things that plant life can do is perhaps bring something out about no spraying pesticides in the rest of the garden. I'm not saying that they're picking on lawns, but lawns are a very easy thing to pick upon. Because we've had a company, or a number of companies out there in the retail industry, for example, that have been supplying us these feed, weed and do everything 4-in-1, 3-in-1 products, where you've had to sort of spray herbicide all over the lawn. That's the education from a commercial sector, which is shockingly bad, and those sort of companies only sort of get found out eventually once the press and so forth get hold of it. But if anyone ever goes into a garden centre, you'll see 3 or 4 lawn products, generally speaking, and about 3,000 plastic bottles for the rest of your garden. So maybe, you know, as I say, apart from the no weed border May, which I might start Maybe I should start something called "Don't make any more plastic bottles with pesticides for the rest of the garden" as well. I'm being a bit facetious, but that's the truth. So when it comes to again your garden, you know, the No Mow May thing's wonderful, but it's not going to work for everybody. It's certainly not going to work on a small little lawn like this, because if you haven't got the daisies or the buttercups, yes, you can try over the years to get them in, but you've also got the thistles and things that maybe if you're walking around here with bare feet, you certainly don't want as well. So let's go and have a look at the third lawn. Again, nothing done to this lawn apart from mown with a little Hedwig robot mower. And again, now we're coming to the end of May. Let's have a look at what condition it is, and we can have a look at some of the contour changes that are taking place as well. So here we are on the little robot mown lawn, and again, no work is done to this lawn at all. We don't feed it. You know, the idea with robots is that they put the clippings back in and they feed themselves a little bit, but this is an awkward lawn. And if you come down with me, I don't know whether the camera may pick this up, but we've got a different grass species growing in here than we have up here. Well, certainly a different composition. But if you look at this, as I said before, this has got ground source heat pumps underneath these lawns. We don't know whether it's here or under the bump, but you can see the difference in here. We've got 15 to 20 centimeters of change. So this lawn is never ever flat. I'm not sure if it ever even went in flat. We're not quite sure because we didn't put them in, of course. But there's quite a drastic change if you look at some of this. Now, we were, as you probably remember, I mean, there's 20 centimeter drop there, and you can see the difference on my feet there. Now this is going to be one of the sort of grass species lawns, I suppose, for the upcoming training days we have. And one of the things that we were going to hope to do was change the transition of grasses. So we were going to have a sort of bent fescue, a rye, a pure bent, a pure fescue, maybe a clover lawn, which we're still going to may even have a go at some point this spring, or this early summer if you want to call it that. So we're going to show people the different compositions in terms of grass identification. But we've sort of gone from the sublime to the ridiculous. So everywhere was soaking wet in sort of April, and then we've gone sort of bone dry in May. So, but again, what you learn from here is obviously evident in front of your face, but it's really whether you want to see it. So down here, for example, on these two bumps, the ryegrass actually survives relatively well. Why? I don't know. Whether it's warmer or colder, I do not know. But as you come down into these two bumps, or two swales, certainly this one in particular, the ryegrass is just clumping horribly, and then the fescue is struggling at the same time. Now, as I say, this isn't a lawn that we're trying to make any good at all, but what we're trying to do is show what happens to a lawn under certain conditions. If you irrigate anything, if you feed it, if you scarify it, if you seed it, as I said before, everything will look great. That's not a problem. It's not difficult to do. But this is sort of the weather that you get, which is going to identify some of the problems. And this one's probably even tricky for me because I don't actually know where these ground source heat pumps are. We think they're under here, but equally they could be under here. But the changes in the lawn shape with this also make it difficult for us to identify and do any work to it as well, because obviously the drier this gets towards the summer, it becomes very scalpable as well. And currently little Hedwig, the lawnmower, gets stuck over on that corner, as you can see. So when we do change the grass species over here, we're going to have to smooth it over a little bit as well. So anyway, this is definitely not a No Mow May. It hasn't got much in the way of weed. We've got a teeny bit of buttercup, teeny bit of daisy. But let's go and have a look in the, I'd say the no mow 364 days a year lawn that we have. I call it a meadow, but some people want to call it No Mow May lawn. So, on to what I'd call it, obviously quite a big garden. Big for me anyway. So this area here, we tend not to do too much to it. You can see we've still got a few, even though we mow this at sort of 40 mil, we've got the odd buttercup and daisy, and if we leave it, it tends to grow like this, which is all beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it becomes difficult when you've got different people wanting different things from your garden. So the No Mow May, as I say, works really well when you've got an expanse. It can work well if you don't want to use your garden for children or animals or whatever. But again, it's very ambiguous. It's purely up to what you want. Now, one of the things about having a big garden, as you can see, we've got some fantastic bits of No Mow May going on in here. We've got some alliums. I think they're called alliums, these things. One of my favourite flowers, actually, I have to say. But you can see the buttercups, absolutely enormous. The insects and the butterflies, not that we see that many butterflies these days, look absolutely amazing. You can see we're very lucky. We've got more of this going on. Don't want to cut down the areas where the daffs were. Somebody can probably tell me if that's a bad thing or not, but if I chop them down, I'm going to chop those buttercups down, and I wouldn't want a gardening charity telling me off for that. Hello, pretty cat. So again, all around here we've got lovely bits of fescue here. The fescues don't quite grow up too high. You can see they're seeding here at about 2 feet, which is nice. In fact, all the way around the pond we've got a load of little ducklings at the moment, so we're not quite sure where they are, but they were on here this morning, about a dozen little ducklings, so well done to me and my pond. So here we go with another No Mow May, and what you can see on here, now I'm going to quickly run up here because I can sort of see grass that is incredibly tall. In fact, you know, we must be at about over 4 feet here. In variations of species, we got bents, we got cocksfoot, we got all sorts going on in here. And what you will see is the potential for lots of wildflowers. Now, one of the things that we did with the grass people was we did a video which you can probably watch somewhere about trying to get a number of different varieties growing in here in conjunction with the grass, in harmony with the grass. And if you come down here, somebody can tell me what that is. I haven't got a clue, but there's some absolutely tons of wildflowers in here, not quite flowering, almost ready to go. But what you can see with this grass at the same time is that, and again, that was part of what we were trying to show, that it is a battle when you make grass grow. We scarified these really heavily. We put leaves down, if you remember, to try and kill off grass without the utilisation of chemicals and things like that. That particular area had a real dense bit of leaf foliage as well, so that did kill it off quite nicely. And that sort of gap that you've got in there worked really well, because the grass species, although they've come back, they've kept to a minimum, but obviously we didn't cover it perfectly. We didn't have enough leaves probably, but it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen in the next few weeks once some of these start to come out. If you go all the way through these, we scarified them a little bit different. We've got quite a lot of we've got quite a lot of different varieties in here. We've certainly got lovely Speedwell popping up there. We've got some lovely little pink geranium, absolutely stacks of pink geranium in here as well. If you ever do want grass seeds, by the way, and then there's your free supply, which you can harvest at the same time. Not that you want to do that, of course, but yeah, loads of lovely geraniums in here, some red nettles, goodness knows what else. So it's going to be interesting to see what does happen. And again, the whole point from what we were trying to do here is not to embrace No Mow May, because we no mow this for 364 days per year, luckily, because we got the room. But the idea behind it was to see what else we could do, not just in what can work, but as I say, you'll learn more from the failures that you do. Now on here, we've obviously failed, I would say, somewhat in not hitting the grass hard enough. But again, that's something that you'll learn next year. Whether that be through trying some other variation, I don't know, but we'll certainly give it a try. But equally, as you can see through, if you come and walk through here, in one of our lovely mown paths up here, look at the daisies that are still in here. They've adapted, so you can actually have the best of both worlds. You can see in here, you know, these are mown regularly, these are mown weekly, and we've still got an absolute harvest of daisies growing in there at the same time, and the buttercups as well. So you can have both. But as I say, you know, to summarise No Mow May, yes, I get the intention behind it, and I'm not one to, I don't think the Lawn Association would ever be one to condone something like that. But what the failure comes from is obviously the lack of education. You know, we've got a grass species that are very dominant out there at the moment, the ryegrass lawns, that won't necessarily work too well with that, because obviously the purpose behind a nice ryegrass lawn is continual scarifying, continual overseeding, continual watering, and obviously continual mowing, which isn't going to give you a No Mow May lawn. But we're about natural lawns, we're about native grasses, we're about understanding how to grow grass. As I say, you learn a hell of a lot from trying things and failing things yourself. What we have in the lawn world at the moment is lots of people copying, lots of people doing the most basic things, and then the lawn failing coming into the winter every year. Because essentially, if you're having to reseed a lawn every single year, it's failed lawn care. It's quite simple. That's not a success. In fact, it's just the opposite. And of course, we've got a whole variety of people not just doing that, but we've also got people educating that, and that goes right the way back to the retail sector at the same time. So No Mow May is a great idea, but it's something that I think people need to get hold of and try and educate people a little bit more knowledge about what you can have, what you can't have, and ways to improve. Just not mowing your lawn for 1 month is a bit of a, I call it a half-assed effort. So anyway, if you like this video, this is, like I say, this is about education. You know, we're learning every single time we come out here. We'll obviously be doing videos based on scarifying and overseeding and top dressing, all the things that we know that will make a beautiful lawn. But as I say, this is about learning, sometimes through failure. So if you do like these videos, or certainly like this one, do hit that like, subscribe, and by all means comment as well. And now we're moving into May, into June, I beg your pardon, not May. May's gone. It'll all be about how to try and preserve our lawn during that, hopefully, hot, dry summer that we're possibly or possibly not going to have. See you soon.